Now, this Sunday night, Sky News will present a special investigation, Men in the Mirror, Rudd and Turnbull, hosted by our very own Chris Kenny. The 1-hour documentary, which explores the many parallels between the two men, features revealing interviews with some of the people who know the two men best, including Kevin Rudd's brother, Greg, former Queensland Premier Peter Beattie and former Labor leader Mark Latham. For more on this, I'm joined from Sydney by the man who put it all together, host of the Kenny Report, Chris Kenny. Chris, just how similar are Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull? And I want to take credit for being, I think, the first one to say that they are two characters cut from the same cloth. I think I wrote that back in 2014 or 15. So do I get any credit in this documentary? I certainly hope so.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rita, we don't credit you. Great to be on the program. You're doing a fantastic job filling in for Peter, and I interviewed Peter in this documentary as well. As you know, Peter and I worked together for Malcolm Turnbull back in 2009. But I've got to say, even back then, when we were up against, as the opposition leader's office, up against Prime Minister Kevin Rudd at that time, a lot of people then said there were striking similarities between the two. I suppose it's been a reasonably common observation, but the more you delve into it, the more parallels there are. Their life stories are very similar. The fact that they were so brilliant as teenagers and driven, very successful in their pre-political careers, of course. But I think the thing that really nails it in the end, the final piece of the puzzle that makes the documentary so compelling, the reason we really need to make it is that in their post-political careers, they've again dealt with it in very much the same way. Neither of them will accept their own failures. They're both, I suppose, on a positive side, they're campaigning on an issue that they say they care about in climate change, but they're also campaigning on media, and that's largely against News Corp, owners of Sky News, of course, but they want to blame the News Corp, blame Sky News and the newspapers and media for their downfall, which is, you know...
And you're now giving them ammunition, Chris. You're giving them ammunition. They're going to dine out on this documentary for months, perhaps years to come. They'll be writing joint editorials in The Guardian. They'll be on CNN, the ABC. We'll never hear the end of this. It's going to be very traumatic for everybody. But you were Malcolm's Turnbull's chief of staff, so you know him well. Could he have been a successful Labor Prime Minister? Was his problem that he was in the wrong party?
Look, that's one of the issues we do explore with some of the people who know them very well in this documentary, because they say that about both Malcolm Turnbull and Kevin Rudd. They could easily have run with or led the other side of politics. Now, I suppose in some ways that's not that unusual. If you're reasonably centrist, you know, you might be able to flip from one side to the other. I often think that there's only a sort of disdain for the unions in the Liberal Party that is the core thing that holds all of the Liberal Party members together, and on the Labor side, it's almost the same. It's really just their love of organised labour is the only issue that really keeps them all in the one tent. But I think perhaps even more telling, Rita, is that the same failing here. Both of these men were brilliant. Don't get me wrong. They have to have enormous talent.
Were they? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure
on the evidence, Rita, just on the achievement that they could come into politics relatively late and lead their party. To lead a federal political party takes enormous talent just to get there. And they both not only did that, but got knocked off and then came back and led them again. So on that score alone, their talents and their brilliance is amazing. But to get to where you're going to go and their failures at the end, their common failure is that neither of them could either develop the policy or the personal skills to keep their parties united behind them. In the end, their most bitter enemies ended up being people on their own side looking to tear them down, and not just fringe players on their own side, but their own front benches. So that was obviously a flaw they shared.
Oh, there's plenty of flaws there. I don't know how you're going to squeeze it all into an hour, but you will. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and congratulations on the doco. Absolutely. And don't miss Men in the Mirror, Rudd and Turnbull, Chris Kenny's special investigation to air this Sunday at 8 p.m.